Okay, Mr. Mayor, we are now live.
Thank you, Brittany. Welcome, everybody. We'll call the meeting to order. Brittany, will you take the vote, please? Attendance.
Yes, so when I call your name, please indicate that you are present for the record. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
Present.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent this evening. He has forwarded his regrets. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
Present.
Councillor Ryan Thompson indicated that he will be late joining us, but he will be here later on this afternoon. For now, he is absent. Councillor Grant Pringle.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
Present.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
Present.
Thank you.
Moving on to our agenda, approval of agendas and add-ons to the agenda. Does anyone have anything to add on to our agenda today? Brittany?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of things. I have one addition to be added under new business, so that will be item 17.2, and that will be discussion regarding Township Canada Day plans, how we intend to celebrate this year virtually. As well, I am requesting that the agenda be amended to consider item 13.2 being report PL 2020-30 prior to 13.1 being PL 2020-27. So that means 13.2 will become 13.1 and vice versa.
Thanks, Brittany. Does anyone else have any additions to the agenda? Seeing none, do I have a mover to put it on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. If there's no questions on the motion, Brittany, take the vote, please.
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against adoption of the agenda as amended with the amendments I have just listed. Councillor Carol Barfoot. Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson is absent. Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. Declaration your pecuniary interest. You can clear anytime you see fit during the meeting. Minutes of previous meetings. I have a recommendation that the minutes of the special council meeting held on June 2nd, 2020 be adopted. Do I have a mover to put it on the floor, please?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by. Do I have a seconder for the motion?
Councillor Pringle has his hand raised.
Okay, sorry, Grant. Councillor Pringle? There's no discussion on the motion before us. Brittany, you take the vote, please.
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against adoption of the June 2nd minutes. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson is absent. Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. The next recommendation I have is that the minutes of council meeting held on June 3rd, 2020 be adopted. Do I have a mover to put on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. If there's no discussion on the motion, Brittany, you take the vote, please.
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against adoption of the June 3rd minutes. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson is absent. Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Deputy Mayor Carlton, do you have a question? Your hand is up.
Oh, no, sorry, I just didn't put it down. It's gone now.
Thank you. We have no announcements. We public
Sorry,
hearing.
Mr. Mayor, you missed one set of minutes, being the minutes of June 9th.
Oh, sorry, I'm just trying to speed the agenda along. Sorry about that. I have a recommendation that the minutes of the special council meeting held on June 9th, 2020 be adopted. Do you have a mover to put on the floor, please? Moved by
So moved.
second by Councillor Pringle. Any discussion on the motion? Brittany, you take the vote, please.
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against adoption of the June 9th minutes. Councillor Carol Bartlett.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson is absent. Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
Or,
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
Four.
Thank you, and that carries.
Okay, now moving on to the agenda. We have no announcements today. Public hearings. I have a recommendation that the regular council meeting be recessed to hold a public meeting for the consideration of the following zoning bylaw amendment applications. First one, Z0619 Reginald McDonald Holdings Incorporated for property located at 202404 Highway 6 and 21 and 202408 and 21. That the regular council meeting be recessed to hold a public meeting for the where was I? And Highway 6 and 21 and 2020-10 Highway 6 and 21 and the next one is for Z0520 David and Linda Cummings for property located at 172 Bayou Beach Road. Excuse me, do I have a mover to put it on the floor, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Barfoot. If there's no discussion on the motion, Brittany, you take the vote, please.
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Bartlett.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson is absent. Councillor Graham Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
for,
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
Four.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. I would like to call this public meeting to order. This meeting has been called for the purpose of considering an application for proposed zoning bylaw amendment application Z0619 for Reginald McDonald Holdings Incorporated for property located at 202404 Highway 6 and 21 and 202408 Highway 6 and 21 and 202410 Highway 6 and 21. Would the clerk please advise those present as to the method by which the notice of this meeting was given? Brittany?
Notice of this public meeting was given by ordinary mail to all property owners within 120 meters, 400 feet of the subject property by email to all of the prescribed bodies on May 21st, 2020, posted at the subject property and posted on the Township of Georgian Bluffs website. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Georgian Bluffs before the proposed zoning bylaw is adopted or passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Township of Georgian Bluffs to the local planning appeal tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party.
Thank you. Would the planner please explain the purpose and effect of the proposed application and whether any correspondence has been received to date? Jen?
Thank you. So the purpose of this zoning amendment application is to facilitate a severance application. And the intent of there's two severance applications. The intent of one is for a lot addition to make the Mitsubishi, Bay West Mitsubishi property larger, so that the owner can build a new, build in a 4-bay addition onto the existing building and relocate the septic, so that it can accommodate the new building. And through this process as well, the other application is to separate the Nissan and Toyota dealerships that merged when they happened to be registered in the same name. So this application for the amendment is effectively to address deficient lot area and frontage for the Mitsubishi property, and to increase the total lot coverage from the required 10% to 16%, and that accommodates the building addition. And then for the Toyota and Nissan property, it will recognize deficient lot frontage for those lots. The bylaw requires 100 meters, and the lots as they currently exist are 77 meters and 44 meters each. So when we look at the policies, when evaluating the application, we see that the county official plan and the township official plan both locate this property within settlement area, space extensive commercial under the county official plan, and the Sunset Strip development area under the township official plan. Within those designations, vehicle sales and services are both permitted uses. So what's there is permitted. The property will be serviced privately. Those three properties are serviced privately. We don't have any municipal services to that area. And the provincial policy statement does allow that, and permits it in settlement areas to allow for infilling and minor rounding out of existing development. The new septic system will be built under a permit from our building department, so it will have to meet the Ontario Building Code requirements. The properties front onto an MTO highway, so the whole purpose of having the provincial highway is to provide for the safe and efficient movement of goods and people. So when we look at the policies that affect that, we reach out to the MTO to see if the proposal meets their policy, and we see through their comments that they don't have any concerns with it. So all of the entrances that are there right now are going to remain. There has been no proposed change to those entrances. So the provincial policy statement also wants us to look at stormwater management. So through this process, because there is an existing site plan agreement on the Mitsubishi property, because there is going to be a change on that property, the site plan agreement has been amended, or the site plan has been amended to reflect the building addition, the new location of the septic system, and the engineer has provided us with a letter just noting that what's being proposed is appropriate for that lot. So what we will do is, once the severances are registered and we have the new legal description, then we will register a new site plan agreement on title for the property. So the zoning relief that's being applied for is fairly common for the Toyota and the Nissan properties. They're existing. There's no development proposed. What they just want to do is legally re-separate them. So Committee of Adjustment did approve both of the applications last night, the one for the lot addition to the Mitsubishi property, as well as the severance to separate the Toyota and the Nissan. Both the Toyota and the Nissan meet the minimum lot size required in the bylaw for a C4 zone. And so there's no, it meets the applications meet the intent of the zoning bylaw. We circulated this application to all the required agencies, and the Conservation Authority, as noted in my report. They have no objections to the approval of the application. They wish to be notified of any decision made with regards to this application. Grey County Planning and Development note no concerns, as the subject applications are not technically proposing any new development. They wish to be notified of any decision rendered with respect to these files. The Niagara Escarpment Commission has no objection and requests to be notified of the decision on these files. The Historic Saugeen Métis have no concerns or objections, and the Ministry of Transportation has no concerns with the proposal, but notes that MTO permits are required for the Mitsubishi property. Suncor Energy Partnership have no concerns with the development. We did circulate all of the property owners within 120 meters, and we didn't receive any comments in support of or in opposition to this application. So the proposed zoning amendment applications are consistent with the county official plan, the Township of Georgian Bluffs official plan, and the application meets the intent of the bylaw. The recommendation is to approve this zoning bylaw amendment application, and at the request of the owner, I do have a bylaw prepared for council's consideration this evening, and provided there are no concerns or objections raised during this public meeting, I'm recommending that the bylaw be approved tonight. Both of the Committee of Adjustment severances were approved last night, and is just in consideration of the building season. If we were to wait to bring back another bylaw to council, that wouldn't occur until, I believe, July 15th. And then there would be an additional 20-day appeal period. So there's a lot of time in between now and when the appeal period would be up. And then the property owner would like to be able to arrange his construction crew to start. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that council might have.
Thanks, Jen. I'll continue on with my script. Is there anyone present who would like to make an oral or written submission on the proposed application? They may do so after giving your name and address to the clerk. I will first hear from the applicant if there is anything that they wish to add to the application, then from those in support of the application, then those opposed. And I'll turn it over to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we only had one registrant to speak, and that is planning consultant, Mr. Ron Davidson, who is on the line with us. Mr. Davidson, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, very briefly. First of all, you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Super, thank you. Yeah, the only thing I would respectfully request is that you followed Jennifer's recommendation to approve the bylaw tonight. Mr. McDonald is very anxious to get building with his addition. This application was supposed to be dealt with 2 months ago, and because of COVID-19, we've lost a lot of time. So that's all I have to say. I would ask that you, there's obviously no concerns from agencies or the adjacent property owners. So if you could give consideration of the bylaw tonight, that'd be sincerely appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. Does the applicant wish to respond to any of the issues that have been raised here today? I do not believe there is any. Brittany? Anyone else wishing to address the application should ask their question to the chair. Does council have any questions? Council will consider all the matters placed before it prior to submitting their comments to the applicant. May I have adjournment of this public meeting? Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Colburn. Brittany, we take the vote, please. Or do we need it?
A mover and a seconder is fine for adjournment of public meetings, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Brittany. So we'll move on for our next public meeting.
Mr. Mayor, you have one motion to be passed regarding Reginald McDonald's application.
Sorry, you point that out to me, and I guess I forgot that quick. I have a motion, a recommendation. It is recommended that joint report LP 2020-28 for Reginald McDonald Holdings Incorporated regarding application Z0619, BO220 and BO320 be received for information, and provide there is no concerns raised at the public meeting on June 17th, 2020, it is recommended that zoning bylaw amendment Z0619 619 for Reginald McDonald Holdings be approved. Do I have a mover to put it on the floor, please? Moved by Grant, second by Councillor Barfoot. There's no other discussion. Brittany, will you take the vote, please?
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson. Councillor Thompson, you are muted. Okay, Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
Or,
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that carries.
Okay, we'll move on for a second public meeting. I would like to call this public meeting to order. This meeting has been called for the purpose of considering an application for proposed zoning bylaw amendment application Z0520 for David and Linda Cummings for property located at 172 Bonnie Beach Road. Would the clerk please advise those present as to the method by which this notice of this meeting was given? Brittany?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm also noticing that Councillor Thompson had his hand raised. Councillor Thompson, would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to test. I was talking, but you guys couldn't hear me. So I don't know whether it was something on the computer or what was going on, but you guys
Now
can
we
hear
can
me?
hear
Yeah,
you.
okay.
So
Okay.
you're good to go.
Brittany, just so Ryan and you know, his hand did not appear in my screen. So Councillor Thompson, I'm not ignoring you. I'll try and get to you. So it's up to the clerk.
Notice of this public meeting was given by ordinary mail to all property owners within 120 meters, 400 feet of the subject property, by email to all the prescribed bodies on May 21st, 2020, posted at the subject property and posted on the Township of Georgian Bluffs website. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Georgian Bluffs before the proposed zoning bylaw is adopted or passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Township of Georgian Bluffs to the local planning appeal tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party.
Thank you. Would the planner please explain the purpose and effect of the proposed application and whether any correspondence has been received to date? Jen?
So the purpose of this of these applications, the David and Linda Cummings own effectively what you would consider 8 lots. So because they are lots on a plan, they are technically separate lots. So what they are doing is applying for a deeming bylaw so that they can merge their lots so that they can create 2 separate larger lots. Through that process, what they'll need to do is recognize deficient lot area for one of the lots, one of the merged lots, because the zoning bylaw requires 1,500 square meters of lot area, and the resultant parcels would be just under 800 square meters. To reduce minimum lot frontage from 30 meters to roughly about 24 meters. And then just to recognize those deemed parcels as existing lots of record, because our bylaw does not recognize deemed lots to be an existing lot of record. And what that means is you can't get a building permit. You can't walk in and just get a building permit to start building on those lots. They need to be existing. So when we look at the policies that affect this application, we note that the properties are located within the inland lake and shoreline designation under the county official plan. That designation permits residential uses, and the lots are located in an area that's partially serviced. So municipal water is available, and the property owner will be required to connect to the system as part of the building permit application process. So there is sufficient capacity on the system, because when the system was put in, they would have looked at that plan and seen the number of lots and provided connections for each of those lots. So it technically should be freeing up a couple of connections there by merging those eight lots into 2. So the property is zoned shoreline residential. What they're proposing, residential uses, is permitted, and technically, as the lots are, they could come forward with a zoning amendment to allow them to build on the they could come forward with an application to develop on those lots. They are the resultant parcel would be 80 feet wide. So as long as they came forward with a building permit application and demonstrated that they could provide the septic system as well as the house and meet the setbacks, then they could technically just get a building permit as long as they met the setbacks and the zoning. So what they're proposing is actually a good thing, and we would encourage that. We would encourage the merging of those lots so that it's more in keeping with the intent of the zoning bylaw. So so as I've mentioned, they do have a deeming bylaw submitted, and that's a legal process that they'll go through to merge those lots into 2 larger lots. We circulated this application to the various agencies. The Grace Harbor Conservation Authority has no objections to what they call a conceptual lot creation for this for a new residential dwelling. They do require a permit from their office for development, and part of the permit application, they are going to be requiring an engineered grading and drainage plan. The Grey County Planning and Development Department note that provided positive comments are received from the Conservation Authority regarding the significant woodlands. They have no further concerns with the subject application. So just in the staff comment there, I have noted that the Conservation Authority is of the opinion that the woodland doesn't meet criteria for significant woodlands, and they don't have any objection to this application. So it meets the intent of the county plan too. The Historic Saugeen Métis have no concerns with the application. We did receive, in our circulation to the neighbors, we did receive written comments from Mr. Doug Crawford. And so his comments are attached in their entirety for council's consideration. And he did express concerns with the size of the property and the potential for development to result in drainage problems. So I did discuss that with him. I provided him with a copy of the Conservation Authority comments and let him know that the engineered grading and drainage plan will be required by the Conservation Authority as part of the permit process. Additionally, the chief building official does have the authority to require a lot grading and drainage plan. With the engineered grading and drainage plan, once the house is built and the grading and grading is finished, the engineer will then check the work and provide a certification that the lot was developed in accordance with the plan that he or she has designed for that lot. So that's another reassurance that there wouldn't be any drainage issues. So just in conclusion, it's been demonstrated that the proposed application is consistent with Provincial Policy Statement 2020, the County of Grey Official Plan, and the Township of Georgian and Bluffs zoning bylaw. And the recommendation is for this the report to be received, and provided there are no concerns raised this evening during the public meeting, the recommendation is that the application be approved. I will have a deeming bylaw and an amending zoning bylaw prepared for the next council meeting for council's consideration. And if there's any questions.
If there's anyone present who would like to make an oral or written submission on the proposed application, they may do so after first giving your name and address to the clerk. I will first hear from the applicant if there is anything that they wish to add to the application, then those in support of the application, then those opposed. Brittany, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So for consideration of this zoning amendment application, we have Mr. David and Mrs. Linda Cummings on the line with us. They are the applicants. Mr. and Mrs. Cummings, would you like to make any comments? You will have to unmute yourselves. Mr. Mayor, maybe we can take comments of council prior to moving on.
Okay, does council have any concerns or questions?
I just have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor Barfoot.
I'm not objecting to it. I'm just curious. On item C from Mr. Crawford, construction of a suitable swale between the length of the property is designed to take away any excess liquid and so on and so forth, and disperse it into the ditches along Balmy Beach Road and out into Georgian Bay. Did our chief building official or operations manager, are the ditches in that area suitable to handle discharge?
Dollar, do you want to answer that?
Thank you, Mayor Burley. Again, an excellent question from our councillors. There has been no study done on them. With proximity to the bay, I can assume at this point that we're not going to have an issue with it. And again, it's we got a really short route to go out to the bay there. So unfortunately, I don't have any background information or a study in front of me to clearly answer that question for you, Councillor Barfoot. But
thank you, Tyler. Jen, do you have any comments?
Yes, so that's where the engineer comes in. The engineer would provide a drainage plan that would meet the requirements of the township in terms of the drainage. Sorry?
No,
and the engineer too would look at the site, do the assessment, and determine whether or not a swale would be appropriate for that. So we would leave that up to the professional engineer to come forward and provide a solution to the drainage in that area.
Thanks, Jen. Councillor Barfoot, did that answer your question?
Yes, I was just curious. Just a little paranoid about ditches in the Balmy Beach area.
Good point. Thank you. Brittany, have we got our applicant on the phone yet?
Yes, they are with us. Mr. and Mrs. Cummings, would you like to make a comment? Mr. Mayor, I think we can move along with our script.
Okay, thank you. Does the applicant wish to respond to any of the issues raised here today? I see none. Anyone else wishing to address the applicant should ask the questions through the chair. Council will consider all matters for submitting their comments to the applicant. If there's no other questions on this applicant, may I have adjournment of this public meeting? Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Pringle. So we are adjourned. Thank you. I have a recommendation. It is recommended that report LPL 2020-29 for Z0520 for David and Linda Cummings be received for information, and provided that no issues are raised at a public meeting, the deeming bylaw and zoning bylaw amendment application Z0520 for David and Linda Cummings for lands described as Plan 171, lots 6 to 8, NS Washington, Plan 171, lots 8 to 10, WS Nelson, Plan 171, PT LTARP 16R 7374, parts 1 and 2 be approved. Do a mover to put on the floor, please?
So moved.
Moved by you, Councillor Barfoot, second by Pickwan. The Councillor, Deputy Mayor Carlton. If there's no other discussion, Brittany, you take the vote, please.
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Graham Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. We've no presentations, no delegations. Consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that council would like to remove for further discussion? Seeing none? That the Council of Township of Georgian Bluffs adopt the consent agenda as circulated, and as staff be directed to proceed with all necessary administrative action. Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Pringle. If there's no discussion on the motion, Brittany, we take the vote, please.
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against adoption of the consent agenda as circulated. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland. Oh, is absent. Oh, sorry. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Graham Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
4.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. Moving on to our agenda, we're down to staff reports. Further to the discussion, the direction to staff provided.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, we're actually on item number 11, correspondence.
You're right. I missed that. We have a correspondence here from Grace Hubble Conservation Shoreline Permit Process. Is this for information, or would Tyler, you want to speak to this, or?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Burley. Yeah, I was happy we were able to add this for correspondence onto our agenda to help our ratepayers, especially the ones fronting the water. We're experiencing high water levels this year, and a lot of ratepayers are reaching out and saying, how do I protect my shoreline? What process do we have to do? Unfortunately, it is very complicated. When land meets water, you have a lot of different permits and a lot of different levels of government to go through. So Grace Elbow has been working forward to create a frequently asked questions to hopefully help steer our ratepayers in the appropriate process to protect their property. So my intention here is to get this added, or at least a link to our webpage to again help ease this process.
Thanks, Tyler. Does council have any questions? Seeing none? So we'll take this as information. So we'll move on to our agenda. We're down to Committee of the Whole. I have a recommendation that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held on June 10th, 2020 be adopted, including recommendations COW 2020-32 to COW 2020-42. We have someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Councillor Thompson. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, Brittany, will you take the vote, please?
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against adoption of the June 10th minutes. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. Now we're down to staff reports. Subdivision security reduction. Further to discussion and direction to staff provided. Okay, I have a recommendation that report PL 2020-30 subdivision agreement securities and reductions be received for information. Who would like to speak to this?
This is Jen's report.
I can.
Go ahead, Jen.
So just in response to the request from a developer to reduce securities, I did provide just a little brief to council for consideration. One of the things that the reason why we take securities is effectively to guarantee the works. So they provide us with a cost estimate, and so I have included that as an attachment to this report. That estimate outlines every single thing that they need to install to build the road or to build the stormwater management pond. So it's an itemized list, right down to the number of manholes necessary. So it's a very objective cost list, and what we do is we look at the proposed plan, and we can see where all of those items are identified on the subdivision plan for the roadworks. So that security comes from the estimate that the engineer has worked out, telling us this is how much it's going to cost to build that feature, that road or that stormwater pond. So in reviewing what the implications would be, I'm not qualified to do a risk assessment should council decide to reduce securities for any subdivision. But what we do know is that if you reduce securities, it results in a deficit of funds that are held to go in and fix or repair any of those approved works. We take 100% minimum at Georgian Bluffs because we don't have, outside of Cobble Beach, we don't have full municipal services. We might have partial or private. If there's insufficient security taken, if anything were to happen, the township is on the hook to pay for those securities. Because you have to remember, you have entered into a development agreement with the developer. The way the development agreement is written is that it goes and it runs with the land. So whoever purchases those properties, they will have an agreement with you, and you have agreed to allow those lots to be created. And they're assuming that they have a road to drive on to get to the properties that they have purchased. So when we look at subdivision agreements, we have the lawyers review them. The lawyers review them and consider that the amount of that security in agreements for the release of securities. So in some areas, in different parts of Ontario, they have different development requirements. So there will be different provisions in those agreements. In the city of Owen Sound, they develop on full services. So they would consider whether or not they're the developers installing an entire new extension. And Tyler can correct me on if I'm using the wrong terminology. But if they're installing an entirely new extension to a sewer, there's different requirements that need to be met. So there's different levels of securities that they may or may not agree to. But I've looked through a couple of the different subdivision agreements, and there's a provision in there that there's always 100% of the securities retained for the incomplete works. So no municipality is leaving themselves open to not having enough securities. So there's different provisions for releases. There might be a different amount of security taken, but then it's counterbalanced by not releasing security for something else. There's a provision in there to protect the municipality. We don't have that set up because we generally operate off of private or partial services, and we take the straight 100% and have a fairly straightforward release provision. I did speak to the solicitor or to the township lawyer about having less than 100%, and in her experience with the agreements that she's reviewed, she's never seen less than 100%. So that's our planning lawyer out of Kitchener, and she's fairly experienced in reviewing subdivision agreements. So as I mentioned, I'm not qualified to provide a risk assessment, so I don't want to go into detail that way of but if council is considering reducing the security, I would recommend that you get an opinion from the insurance provider just to determine what your level of risk is. 25% reduction in the security is $250,000. So the township needs to have that money to be able to fix or repair those works that you've approved. So just in the conclusion of my report, at Georgian Bluffs, we have fairly and consistently applied a security of no less than 100%. The lawyer maintains that that's a standard practice, and we need to make sure there's sufficient funds for development. So I'm just recommending that you receive this report for information.
Thank you, Jen. Question from council.
I have a question, Mr.
Deputy
Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, Councilor Burford first.
Okay. Thank you very much for all that information, Jen. I've been doing a little digging around. Now, okay, there's a difference between off-site and on-site. I understand Owen Sound, and I understand this. Owen Sound is 60% on-site and 100% for off-site. What I'm questioning is, what is so wrong with us taking 100% on-site and 60% off-site? We're hearing a lot lately since this COVID pandemic about private and public partnerships. I would like to see us work with and see if there was some way we could go to 100% off-site or stay at 100% off-site and 60% on-site.
So just in response to that, the on-site works are being approved to build that entire road to service those lots and the stormwater management pond. So if you have a reduction in the on-site, so that's all of the works that are located within the property owned by the developer, then that's the bulk of the work. So that's where you have lots created that if the road doesn't get built or not built properly, the township has to go in and fix. The off-site works will be a bit of work onto the county road allowance and the township's concession road. So I think if you look at the security at the estimate, I think it amounts to about $30,000 worth of work. So the bulk of the work is for development on the lands in the development.
Thanks, Jen. Tyler, you want to speak before we go to the Deputy Mayor? You muted, Tyler.
Thank you, Mayor Burley. Just really quickly, the offsite works are normally 100% because they're active roadways. And also we're dealing with a county road as well. So you're coming into multiple ownerships. So that's why it's normally for sure you want 100% on your offsite works as well. But I agree with everything else that said. The majority of the cost is definitely incurred on site. I just thought I'd add that for a point.
Thanks, Tyler. Deputy Mayor Carlton, you had a question?
Oh.
More kind of a statement, I guess. If I'm understanding what Jen's saying, the rationale behind Owen Sound only wanting is 60% on site would be that for the most part, they are going to have services, roadways and everything going to that subdivision already. Where in this case, we're talking the full road internal through the subdivision. So hence why you would want 100%. Am I understanding that correctly?
Who wants to answer that, Jen or Tyler?
Oh, Tyler has his hand up. I'll let Tyler.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Thank you. I think an important part of this particular subdivision is definitely the stormwater management. These ponds are, that's the process of life nowadays, is that they're getting more and more expensive to get your stormwater design, and it's more and more of an importance. So these are two not necessarily complicated but expensive pieces of stormwater control that it's expensive. It has to be in place. So it's not just the road in this application. It's also making sure that stormwater is mitigated.
Thanks, Tyler. Excuse me. Does council have any more questions?
Oh, God, I keep doing the wrong button.
Brittany, I must apologize. I don't remember if I asked for a mover and seconder to put on the floor.
I don't believe you did because I have no record of them.
Okay. I should ask for a mover and a seconder to put on the floor. Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Councillor Thompson. If there's no other, Anne Marie, are you, is your hand up? No. If there's no other discussion on the motion, we'll vote on this, but it's for information mainly, Brittany?
That is correct. So as discussed at the last council meeting on June 3rd, Jen prepared this report for council to have more information as to what reducing the security would look like. So the next item, being 13.2, will approve 100% securities. Will trigger approval of 100% securities, which will then be adopted by bylaw later on in this agenda by approval of the subdivision agreement. So should you decide, or should it be council's wish that you would like to reduce the securities, the next motion will need to be amended to reflect the reduction. So for now, I will call the vote on just receiving this report for information.
Okay.
Is there any questions that I can answer procedurally?
No, that's fine with me. Does council have any questions?
So, yeah, I do.
Go ahead,
So
council.
what you're going to, sorry,
Go ahead.
what Brittany's going to read now is just to accept the information. Is that correct?
That is correct. So the motion I am taking the vote on right now simply states that report PL 2020-30 subdivision agreement securities and reductions be received for information. You are not making a decision right now. You will be making a decision under the next. So if there's no other questions, I'll go ahead with the vote. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Graham Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. So moving on to our agenda, I have a recommendation. It is recommended that report PL 2020-27 Kilsyth Meadow Subdivision Agreement 2020 from the planner be received for information, and that council approved bylaw 2020-59 as presented with 100% securities to authorize a subdivision agreement with various Construction Installation Limited for lands described as part of Lot 9, Concession 7, part of Lots 71, 75, 78, 85 to 87, and unnamed street register plan 117, part 1, plan 16R 10979 as identified with draft plan subdivision number 42T 2018-11 for the creation and development of 33 privately serviced residential lots. Do I have a mover to put it on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Pringle. Do you have any discussion on the motion before us? I see no hands waving or on the screen. Brittany, so take the vote, please.
I can do that. And just to clarify for council's information, through adoption of this motion, you are approving 100% securities. That means no reduction. Is there any questions prior to my taking the vote?
Seeing none?
Okay, so when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion as presented. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
Opposed.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
Or
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries 5-1.
Thank you. Moving on, we're down to surface treatment roads. I have a recommendation that report OPS 2020-27 from Tyler Yonke, Director of Operations, be received, and that the Council of Township of Georgian Bluffs approve the roads listed in Appendix 5, 2020 road selection for surface treatment to be completed in 2020, and that the roads selected for surface treatment be financed from the OCIF funding and gas tax revenues, and that the Township of Georgian Bluffs authorize the first of two option 1 year extension of RFT 2019-09 to Duncor Enterprise Incorporated as specified in the original tender to complete this work. Do we have a mover put it on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any discussion? Tyler, do you want to speak to the report before I ask for council's question?
I would like to add that we brought this report forward last week, OPS 2020-26, and the intent was to give council more time to review the proposed surface treatment work that we were doing. Just to highlight, Mr. Bear, you brought forward possible one road selection, and that was on 14th Street West, or otherwise known as Henderson Hill. We did look into that, and unfortunately, we found it, or not unfortunately, but it was asphalt, and as well, it looks like it needs more stormwater control as well. So we'll put that into future consideration. But that was the intent of the report, was to gather more information or any feedback. But other than that, there has been no changes, so I'd be happy to entertain any questions at this time.
Thanks, Tyler. Does council have any questions? Seeing nothing, Brittany, will you take the vote, please?
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
or
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. Moving on to our agenda. The recommendation that report OPS 2020-028 from Tyler Yonke, Director of Operations, be received, and that the Council of Township of Georgian Bluffs authorize the CAO to secure the SCM grant Appendix 1, and that Aqua be authorized to complete the feasibility study to evaluate the biogrid facility as outlined in the grant application Appendix 2, and that Council of Township of Georgian Bluffs utilize the service modernization funding for small and rural community grant received in 2019 to assist with finding efficiencies to pay for township share of $58,769.89. Do we have a mover put it on the floor, please? Moved by Councilor Colburn, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Tyler, do you want to speak to this report?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Burley. This very similar report was brought to Council March 4th. It was OPS 2020-13. Council requested the report be deferred until we can look into possible extensions of the grant funding. We have looked into that, and they're now requesting an update. And this seems to be the last update that we'll be getting, is the nicest way to say it. So again, to outline this report for a high-level review, Aqua is looking at doing a feasibility study. We're looking at doing a partnership with Aqua to do a feasibility study on a variety of things, as in feedstock, as well as getting into possible renewable gas energy back into the pipelines versus our FIT program with hydro. I would like to highlight in the adopted biodigester meeting minutes that we had today is that the biogrid is instructing staff to go forward and produce a RFT to, I'll put quotations up, mothball the digester. So this report would add equal value to the requested RFT. In other words, to provide all of the options to give the biogrid and both councils more information moving forward. Again, without a proper feasibility study, the available materials, innovative technologies, and beneficial use of the biogas, the biogrid will not be able to make or be in a position to make an informed decision pertaining to the future operation and expansion of this and sustainability of this capital investment that we have. I'd be happy to entertain any questions or comments council may have.
Thank you, Tyler. Does council have any questions on the report, the motion before us? Councilor Colburn.
So thank you, Tyler. Every time you bring a report back, even though it looks the same as the last one, I feel like I'm a little closer to understanding the concept a little better, so I appreciate that. Do we have a deadline from the government, hard deadline? Like when is the final decision to be made?
Thank you, Councillor Kathy Coburn. It would be now. We've asked for 3 to 4 extensions on this. COVID was brought to light. Originally, they actually responded back, and as we were in the same boat as well, said, well, we'll deal with it after the COVID pandemic. But everybody thought that was 2 weeks to a month at the time. So now we're coming into 3 months, 4 months, and they realize that they have to either allocate these funds, or it's going to move on to another municipality in need.
Thank you. One more question at this time, if I can, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilor Colburn.
We have talked about our biodigester as being another regional asset. And I imagine, I know this is a feasibility study, but looking down the road a little bit, we are going to be, the success of these upgrades is going to be dependent on partnering with neighboring municipalities to bring SSOs our way for processing. So much like our municipality agreeing to fund part of the cost of the tourism study with South Bruce Peninsula, have we approached the City of Owen Sound and other neighboring municipalities to chip in to cover some of the costs that we're looking at right now, covering only through Georgian Bluffs. I know the City of Owen Sound has endorsed the notion, but have we asked anybody to help pay for this study? I'm just wondering why we're asking the Georgian Bluffs residents only to shoulder the burden of this cost.
I guess I'm going to ask Tyler if you want to respond.
Thank you, Mayor Burley. Once again, that was a great question, Councillor Coburn. So originally, we actually reached out to Aqua in 2018 to discuss the potential, and then this report back in it was in 2019. I don't have the exact date in front of me. Was presented to council to say, okay, let's do the grant application to see if we can have help identifying our issues and how we can make this biodigester work. That being said, it was established back in that report that yes, this would be a Georgian Bluffs initiative. But as for why not, I believe that is outside of staff's ability. That's definitely on the political platform there. I wouldn't be able to answer that one for you.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask that question of you then? Has the City of Owen Sound and our other municipal partners that we would be counting on to bring their organics to the biogrid been approached to help pay for the cost of this study?
As far as I know, Councillor Coburn, no, they have not. It's so important that we get this study done so we can have information that we can all base a proper decision on. By not having that information, we still don't know if it's feasible, and should we even be approaching other municipalities to take part in a biodigester. That's why it's so important we get that feasibility study to have the proper information. And as far as I know, Councillor Coburn, we, as Georgian Bluffs, decided to take it on ourselves so we'd have proper information to base a decision. It is coming out of our modernization funding for small municipalities, which is a good place to take it. I hope I answered your question, Councillor Coburn.
I think partially, yes, thank you. I guess I'm just going to finish by saying I think it would have been wise to include our partners, bringing them on to help fund this study as well. I'll let the rest of council ask their questions.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I think I might be wrong about this, but I would say that the lack of partners is, or the lack of partners with us is, it speaks volumes. I understand what we're saying about, you know, if we do this feasibility study, then we'll have the answers, or then we'll know what we really have. But I think we're guilty of having done that with a couple of our major investments over the last several years. So I'm curious about if our recommendation is to mothball. I'm curious about whether it's prudent to roll $60,000 into it. I would suggest that our message from our partners about mothballing this is a clear one, and it's not, you know, if we spend tens of thousands of dollars on this, it will make it better. I don't know. It's $60,000, and yes, we can say it came from grant funding, or we can say it came from gas tax or whatever, but that's still real money, and it's money we could be using elsewhere. I'm not convinced that this is a good way for us to spend money.
Thanks, Councillor Thompson. I'll go to Anne Marie first.
Thank you, Mayor Burley. I just also wanted to make a point that one of the the request that's going to go out for the mothballing, there will be a significant cost to mothballing it also. So either way, it's a cost to not do anything with it right now and possibly keep it in a state that you might be able to do something later on. And so there's that also. I just wanted you to be aware of that.
Thanks, Anne Marie. Wow. Definitely, Mary Carlton.
I would also like to concur with Anne Marie that that's part of what's coming out of the biodigester meetings, is that there is desire to mothball without having enough knowledge or information about what are the costs of mothballing. The idea was, can we shut it down for 6 months or a year and start it back up again? We don't know that. That might cost a lot more than it would to keep it running, to mothball it in that manner. So going for this report would tell us a lot more information so we can make a better informed decision at the biodigester board level, because right now I don't think we have enough information to make that decision.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Carlton. Ryan, I see your hand is up again.
Yes, thank you. This sounds trite. I don't mean this to sound trite. I'm wondering if it makes more sense to use the money from the modernization grant, which is unfettered, I think, to pay for the mothballing costs.
Cassandra, go ahead.
So we've kind of muddied the conversation here. So we're actually talking about two different things. So the biodigester has approved putting an RFP out for a mothballing report. So that will be funded by the biodigester. So what they're looking to do is hire an engineer to basically write a report saying this is what it would cost to mothball, this is what your assets are worth after, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have the feasibility study report, which is on the other hand, and which is what Tyler's talking about right now, that is strictly Georgian Bluffs, and that Chatsworth has said they will not pay for. So I just want to make sure that we're not muddying the two kind of reports we're talking about here, because they are two completely, well, they're completely separately funded things. I know that they have a lot of overlying factors and stuff, but that mothballing report will be paid for by the bio, and then once it's determined what the cost would be to mothball, then it would be up to both councils to decide how to move forward.
Thanks, Cassie. So what it is, it's a sort of two reports going along at the same time if this motion is approved. And the problem I see here is that it's great to say we should go ahead and mothball and so on with no information. We just made that decision. It's kind of a knee-jerk type situation. I really think we need information so we know whether or not this biodigester is really benefit in the future, or is there anything we can do with it? And if we have this feasibility study, if we decide we want to get rid of the biodigester completely, at least we have a study base that we can make decisions on and say, this is information that these people would probably want to offer to want to buy it or otherwise. Same as the City of Owen Sound. If they see that we have a feasibility study outlining what is the potential for the biodigester, yes, maybe they will jump on board and want to invest in the biodigester. But we've nothing to base our decision on right now, and that's why I really feel it's important that this study proceed so we can get that information so we have something as a council to base our decisions on. Councillor Coburn, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just a couple of things, Mr. Mayor. In response to your comment about an RFP for mothballing the biodigester being a knee-jerk reaction, I'm not sure that that's fair. I think that board has looked at many probably years of inaction and inactivity, relative inactivity at the biogrid, and I think that's what they're basing possibly that decision on. However, I do have another question. Perhaps this is best directed at Tyler through you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
This study that we're proposing we undertake, who exactly would be conducting the study? Who are we paying? Are we paying Aqua to do the study? In other words, are we paying to have this particular partner who's a bit of a driving force behind this particular study? Are we paying them to actually conduct the study, or is it a different consultant?
Thank you, Councillor Kathy Coburn. No, it's a great question. The majority of the cost will be going to Aqua. As I broke out into my account or my report here, they are doing in-kind report. Most people recognize Aqua, Ontario Clean Water Association, with basically our drinking water system or wastewater. They do have certain factions that actually, or I should say staff, that work directly just with biodigesters and alternate renewable energy sources. What they're able to offer us is great experience and real-life case studies of other municipalities who's went through growing pains in both case scenarios. The municipalities who have sold off and watched the private sector gains, and as well as the ones that they pushed forward and were able to move into the separated solid industry and actually turn their biodigester around. I believe Cornwall was one. It's also important to it's very difficult to say this with 100% certainty, but with the 2025, diverting landfill waste and everything else, it's supposed to be coming into law that we're not supposed to be putting organics in there. I'm using the word "supposed to," and I'm sure we've all heard it as well, but we don't have a lot of landfill space left. So I don't see the government's alternative to say, no, we're not going to say that you can't bring organics to a landfill. This is all the information I have, and that's my opinion. I don't have anything really that says 100% they're going to be passing a law, but I think it's a lot to consider in the next 4 to 5 years if they do actually make that. And we're sitting on top of a biodigester, what situation we're at and how that brings it to light as well. I think that could be a lot. But I think that's where Aqua can bring that their knowledge of the system and again their actual real life case studies moving them forward. Again, with the breakdown, it's more. There's a lot to do with education. I think it was $30,000. Part of this grant, again, it's 50% eligibility, was for a report to council and presentation to council in our bio grid. Sorry, it was 31,000. But again, it's that is the intent of this feasibility study, is to use somebody who has more experience in this industry, bring it forward, and provide our council with the necessary information to make the appropriate decisions.
Thanks, Tyler. Councillor Thompson.
So help me with this again. I feel like we've been down this road and I maybe get it twisted. So hasn't Aqua approached us about the possibility of operating this?
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I'm sorry, that was the end of the question, right? I think
I'll have a supplementary. Yeah, I'll have a supplementary question after.
Oh no, right on. I thought you cut up there for a second. Yes, I do believe that is a true possibility. So what Aqua is bringing as well is a great partnership with Enbridge. So Enbridge is that's where we're going to get away from our generator and getting back into the grid system. We call it FIT program, which will be up this year, and getting into renewable gas energies. And Enbridge is just a very, very large company with a lot of capital right now and the know-how to get that gas back into the main lines at a greater profit, if you will, a better return for our investment. And again, it's that partnership that is also, I guess, in the word usage of partner, we would be partnering with Enbridge as well.
So, if you don't mind my supplemental, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I'm a simple person, I guess. So do the optics of this look a bit unusual or curious then? So we would be giving Aqua $60,000. The the funding would be $70,000, and then at some point they may operate this if the feasibility study that they're going to do would reflect that this is possible. Like, I feel like, this just feels a bit unusual to me in terms of partners. And
would you like me to try and respond to that, Mr. Mayor?
Ryan, that was more of a statement, or was there a question in there? Just so I'm clear.
I don't know. If there's an answer for it, that would be great. It seems peculiar to me that we would procure $160,000, or in different parts, to give to an agency who's interested in operating it to do a study to tell us what we have to offer. It just seems to me, it makes me feel less confident that our $60,000 is well spent right now. That's all. And maybe I'm the only one that would think that. So I don't know that there's a question there.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Tyler, you want to respond to that?
I think it is a valid point. We are in no way making any agreement with Aqua at this point, except for they're bringing information forward. I do anticipate that if we get very positive feedback from this feasibility study, that they would actually come to us with some sort of an offer at the end of this if the feasibility study was doing well. But again, that's not our intention at this time, and that is in the future. It is really about information to say this is what we have to do to make this a viable capital asset, or I think you got an excellent point there as well, but just to be clear, we're not making any agreements with them past the point of a feasibility study at this time.
Thanks, Tyler. You're 100% right. We're trying to get information back. Was Aqua not putting a percentage towards this feasibility study too?
Thank you, Mayor Burley. They call it in-kind work. So yes, they're doing approximately $13,000 in-kind work. So that's stuff they won't charge us for, if you will. That's what they describe in kind. We won't receive a bill for that, but they'll put in that time towards it. Okay.
Who have we got here? I'll go to Councillor Barfoot first, and then you, Kathy, after.
13,000 is a little bit off 58,000. I have the same concerns that Councillor Thompson mentioned. Aqua's urging us to get this. They're going to do the study. Then they want to partner with us. To me, a partnership is, 50-50 or 25-75 or whatever. I'm a little bit nervous about it. And I'm even more nervous down the road, since they're going to have sort of a vested interest in this. They're going to want the contract to operate it. So I think there's far-reaching things here that maybe we're not seeing.
Good comment.
Mr. Mayor, if I could interrupt, it is $25,000 actually would be Aqua's in kind.
Okay, thank you, Anne-Marie. Good comment, Councillor Barfoot. I agree with what you're saying. The thing that Tyler is trying to point out, if this feasibility study is made, that information will be coming back to Council. Council then can base a decision on how we want to move forward with it based on that feasibility study. And it's, as Tyler is saying, the Aqua are very big when it comes to things like this. I have seen, I think, at the Biodiversity Committee, we've seen many different reports, and we've even gone to site to see some of the things that Aqua has done for different areas and different places. And how they started was by having a feasibility study done first. Yes, Aqua they are looking after some of these contracts themselves, and some they aren't. But they did do the study to have us proceed forward. Councillor Coburn, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to say that I concur completely with also with Councillor Thompson's remarks. I don't think I could state it any better than he did, so I won't. I would just say, though, that we're also supplying in-kind contributions, and I would have liked to have seen Aqua contribute to the study more in terms of the hard costs as well as just an in-kind offer as well. I did just want to make one other point. We have talked a little bit about examples of successful SSO processing plants. I think many of them are in larger centers where perhaps there's more availability at shorter distances and therefore reduced cost to truck those organics to a facility. I wonder if we're also drawing conclusions from examples that of places that have been in place for a while. I know in the Dundalk area, there was a company by the name of Petawawa who had wanted to put a very similar kind of processing plant, an SSO processing plant in the town of Dundalk a number of years ago. And then backed out. And I don't know for sure, but I wonder if the timing coincided with the Conservative government coming into power in the province and doing away with the Green Energy Act, making that kind of, those kinds of funds to support that kind of processing plant a little less likely than they may have been in the past. So yeah, there are lots of successful stories to draw from, but there may be some others that maybe aren't quite as encouraging as well.
Good comments, Councillor Coburn. Deputy Mayor Carlton.
I would just like to comment that I think we're tying two different things together. Having Aqua do the actual feasibility study is in no way guaranteeing that we are then at a future date going to give them the contract for operating the biogrid plant. The purpose in having Aqua do it, they did come forward. They're putting in kind money or funds in, as are we, but they have the expertise. We know them. We've worked with them before in our wastewater treatment or our water plants. I think having them bring this information forward to us gives us the information to make better decisions going forward. And they would then be in competition to be able to run the plant if that's what we decided to do. So I think we're getting two different things confused here that we need to keep separate.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Coburn, your last comment, please.
Yeah, no, just to be clear, Mr. Mayor, I'm not confusing the two issues at all. I clearly understand the difference between the first step being the study and then subsequent possible funding of upgrades and operational costs down the road if we decide to go in that direction. So no, I for one am not confused. I would also like to say, though, after having expressed many concerns, that I do think we need to start looking at solutions to the landfill sites that Tyler did mention. I'm feeling a little conflicted because I do think that's a future concern. I do want to do what's best for the environment. And sometimes services like this are not necessarily, I mean, the importance is not necessarily to generate a profit, but to offer a service that does right by our communities within our municipality. So I'm feeling conflicted between my desire to do right by the environment and the costs. So yeah, that's not very profound to admit that I'm feeling a little bit befuddled at the moment, but I do appreciate all the information that's been given to us this evening, Tyler. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Coburn. Those are good comments, and I think everybody around this table agrees with your comments that, yeah, that is a concern. Tyler referred to the province Navy will make decisions on in the near future. We don't know that. If they did, it probably would help the situation out a lot better. Do I have any more comments from council or even staff? I see none. Brittany, would you take the vote, please, on this motion?
Councillor Coburn has her hand raised.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm very sorry, Council. I just one other question, perhaps for Cassie, if I could, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
We talk about the funding for this coming through the modernization grant, but I know we had sort of earmarked parts of that grant for other projects. Is there still lots left within that fund? How is it looking sort of down the road? Do you have some comments, Cassie, on that?
Yeah, we've spent minimal amounts of that fund, so there's still lots left, and everything that we earmarked in the 2020 budget to be used, there's still plenty to pay for this.
Thanks, Cassie. If that answers your question, Councillor Coburn, your hand's still up, but you're just ready to put it down. If we have no other questions on this motion, Brittany, would you take the vote, please? Vote, Grant. Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, no, I just I didn't want you to think I wasn't here. So a lot of valid points by everybody's been made out there on all this, and it is one of those scenarios where, you know, is it the right thing to do to spend $60,000 towards a project? But the other side of that is, as Kathy just alluded to there, we do have to be concerned about where our environment's going to be in 5 years from now or 10 years from now. So I'm not swaying one way or the other. I kind of went both sides of the fence on this. It is a tough decision to make, but I guess the way I look at it at the end of the day is if we don't do something to try and preserve what we hope to have down the road, we're still going to be sitting here wondering if we should have done whatever we done. So I guess I'm kind of thinking it's a good idea to do the investment to find out, but I do 100% agree with everybody that said that it's not a good idea. I get that too, and I agree with that piece too. So yeah, it sucks. This is a horrible decision to make, but we do have to look for our township and our area, and yeah, it's just more of a comment than I just wanted to let you know I was still here. So that's it.
Thanks, Grant. And good, excellent comment. If I see no other comments, Brittany, would you take the vote, please?
Okay, I'm just giving everybody a couple seconds before I take the vote just to make sure we're done. Okay, so when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion as presented. Is everyone comfortable with the motion, or do you need me to read it again?
No, well, I'm fine.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
Opposed.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
Opposed.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
Or.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries 4-2.
Thank you. Moving on for agenda, public question period. Brittany, did you get any replies from the public?
No, we did not have any questions submitted by the public.
Thank you. So moving on, we're down to bylaws. Recommendation, whereas council has given consideration to the written comments submitted by the agencies in the decision on proposed zoning bylaw amendment application Z0318 for MJD Investments Limited for property located at 343622 Church Side Road East, part of Lot 27, Concession 3, Geographic Township of Sarawak, and whereas council has considered oral submissions made at the public meeting, therefore be it resolved that the Council of Township of Georgian Bluffs is satisfied that the proposed amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement 2020 and other governing regulations, and that bylaw 2020-58 be read a first per time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Do I have a mover to put on the floor, please? Moved by Grant, second by Councillor
So
Colburn.
moved.
If there's no discussion on the motion, Brittany, will you take the vote, please?
Mr. Mayor, through you, we do have a couple of registrants just in regards to the Davenport subdivision applications, including this zoning bylaw amendment. They include Mr. Ron Davidson and Mr. Murray Davenport. So through you, Mr. Chair, I would like to ask if they have any comments that they would like to make.
Certainly. Go ahead, Brittany.
Mr. Davenport, do you have any comments you'd like to make regarding the zoning bylaw amendment?
Yeah, we're obviously in favor of the proposal. Since the last meeting, we've contacted Ron Campbell, and we have surveyed his property, so we're going to address his issue with a design. I've promised to review the design with him prior to submitting it to the township for approval. Otherwise, we're in favor of the project.
Thanks, Marie.
Mr. Davidson, do you have anything you'd like to add prior to my taking the vote?
No, I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Okay, so when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. Down to bylaw 2020-63, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2020-20 of the Township of Drawers and Bluffs. Let me read the recommendation. We'll start again. Whereas Council has given consideration to the written comments submitted by the agencies in the decision on proposed zoning bylaw amendment application Z0619 for Reginald McDonald Holdings Incorporated for property located at 202404 Highway 6 and 21 and 202408 Highway 6 and 21 and 202410 Highway 6 and 21, and whereas Council has considered oral submissions made at the public meeting, therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Drawers and Bluffs is satisfied that the proposed amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement 2020 and other governing agents regulations, and that bylaw 2020-63 be read a first, second, third time, and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed of the corporation endorsement bylaw book. Do I have someone to move to put it on the floor, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Barfoot. If there's no discussion on the motion, excuse me, Councillor Barfoot, you have a question? No? Okay, Brittany, will you take the vote, please?
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. I have another next recommendation, that bylaw 2020-57 being a bylaw to adopt amendment number 7 to the official plan of the Township of Drawers and Bluffs be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed to seal the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Do I have someone to move to put it on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by Councillor Pringle. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Brittany, will you take the vote, please?
Mr. Mayor, again through you, this is again related to the Davenport subdivision application. So I would again ask Mr. Davenport, do you have any comments you would like to make prior to my taking the vote?
I have no further comment.
Thank you. Mr. Davidson, I'll ask the same of you.
I'm good.
Okay, thank you. When I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot?
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn?
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson?
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle?
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton?
Or.
And Mayor Dwight Burley?
Or.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. The next bylaw, the bylaw 2020-59 being a bylaw to authorize a subdivision agreement with Various Construction and Installation Limited for a draft plan of subdivision 42T 2018-11 in the geographic township of Derby be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation and endorsed in the bylaw book. Do I have someone to move to put the motion on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Pringle, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Brittany, will you take the vote, please? Councillor Barfoot, do you have a question?
No.
No. Okay. Okay, go ahead, Brittany.
She's just ahead of me. Councillor Carol Barfoot?
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn?
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson?
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle?
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton?
Or.
And Mayor Dwight Burley?
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. We're down to bylaw 2020-60. The bylaw 2020-60 being a bylaw to adopt the 2020 operating and capital budgets for the township of Georgian must be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and sealed the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Do I have someone to move to put it on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Colburn, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Colburn.
So sorry, this is a motion to pass what has been to pass the 2020 budget.
That's correct.
Yeah, I don't think I have any issues or concerns. I just want to make a statement. Given that we were hit with the pandemic this year and that threw some of our, I think, discussions and decision making off a little bit, I will support the budget as it stands. However, for 2021, I want to see some serious changes to the spending that we're currently making on our airport or having on our airport. Again, I know this is no surprise. My opinion is that this is not sustainable for a small municipality, and we need to start seriously moving forward with some meetings and talks in partnerships with neighboring municipalities and the counties so that our ratepayers are not shouldering the entire cost of an airport that doesn't really benefit our residents. So it's just a comment I want to make, not an issue with the 2020 budget, but certainly will be going forward.
Thank you for your comments. Is there any other questions or comments? Councillor Colburn, okay. Seeing none, Brittany, will you take the vote, please?
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Graham Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
Or.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. I thought I would see the treasurer smiling since the bylaws passed. Okay, moving on. The bylaw 2020-61 being a bylaw to establish levy tax rates for the township of Georgian Bluffs purposes, confirm the County of Gray and school bus rates for year 2020, provide for penalty and interest and defaults of payment thereof, establish alternate installments and due dates, and to repeal bylaw number 2019-49, be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed the seal of the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move and put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Barfoot, second by Councillor Thompson. Cassie, do you want to comment on this, or it's pretty straightforward? Okay. Does council have any questions? Seeing none, Brittany, will you take the vote, please?
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Graham Pringle.
Sorry, for.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. The next recommendation, the bylaw 2020-65 being a bylaw to adopt policy COU 01-2020 closed session policy, be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor, clerk, sealed the seal of the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw book. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Pringle. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Brittany, will you take the vote, please?
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Graham Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. Moving off our agenda, we have no unfinished business. We're down to new business. Councillor Colburn and Councillor Barfoot, Councillor Colburn, are you taking this on? There was a request to have a discussion regarding 2021 multiple municipal wind turbine working group membership.
Yeah, I can. Carol certainly can as well. It was requested that we bring this issue back to council. As you know, Councillor Barfoot and I sit on the multiple municipality wind turbine working group. We've been attending their meetings. I think they're every other month. Carol can correct me if I'm wrong. And the question was posed to us if we feel that continued participation and membership with this group would be recommended. Both, I think Carol Barfoot and I, Councillor Barfoot and I would recommend that we do not continue participation and membership with this committee in 2021 going forward. Most of the discussion and decisions and work of the working group is focused on the health and well-being outcomes of wind turbines that are already located in many municipalities. And as Georgian Bluffs does not have any wind turbines located within our boundaries, most of what is discussed and decided upon at that working group doesn't really impact us or apply to us. However, we have recommended that staff bring back some kind of report, if council so wishes, that addresses any bylaws that would be enforceable should a company want to establish wind turbines within our boundaries, and that they clearly delineate proper, sufficient setbacks from people's homes and so on. I don't know if Councillor Barfoot has anything to add to that.
Councillor Barfoot, any comments?
Well done, Councillor Colburn. We have brought sufficient information back to Township staff regarding when whatever company applies for a building permit, and there was a lot of information gathered at the wind turbine thing as to what various municipalities are doing, not only about the erection of the wind turbines, but as Councillor Colburn said, the setbacks, but we also have to consider what happens when they're decommissioned. That was something that a lot of municipalities did not favor. They're an excellent working group. They've shared information. However, I really don't think it's a good investment of taxpayer money at this time to be sending 2 councillors down to that.
Thanks, Councillor Barfoot. I sat on that committee with you for a good number of years, and when it first started, it seemed to be a worthwhile thing to gather information on, and I respect both your decisions, and I do agree with it, that maybe the time has come that it's time for us to bow out. Cassie, I understand that our membership has been paid up for 2020.
Yes, so that's kind of how this came up. I was withholding the 2020 membership, and then it was time to follow up on it. So I had discussions with both Councillor Coburn and Councillor Barfoot, and they said that they'd already attended meetings in 2020. So we agreed it was best to pay that membership. So that's paid for 2020. So my recommendation would be that we draft a motion and pass it at our next council meeting, just letting them know our intention is to withdraw that from that meeting or from that committee for 2021.
Thanks, Cassie.
Further, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor Barfoot.
Sorry. I believe one of our staff is working on the building permit fees and all that and the bylaws. So that should be brought back. I will say one thing. I think Councillor Colburn and I have formed a good relationship with other members of that committee. And should we run into a problem with the wind turbines in Georgian Bluffs, I'm sure we could reach out to them. But staff has sufficient information to bring us up to date. And I will say it was extremely educational to sit on that committee.
Thanks, Councillor Barfoot. Yes, I, other than the long trip down there to a meeting, it was a good meeting to attend, and I did attend it many, many times. You and I went through many, many snowstorms going to it too. So it's a good recommendation, and I guess Cassie, as you indicated, we'll bring back a motion at our next council meeting. Is that what we're to do?
Yes, if the acting clerk could draft that for us, please, and thank you.
That is correct. I will bring a motion back to the July 15th council meeting.
Thank you. Is that okay, Councillor Colburn and Councillor Barfoot? Okay, great. So let's move on. For our next item was Canada Day celebration. Brittany.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I will kind of start, and then Anne-Marie, if you have anything to add, just feel free to butt in whenever. So staff, including myself, Anne-Marie, and Zach, have kind of been looking at what we normally do for Canada Day and what that can look like now given our current situation with the ongoing pandemic. Traditionally, there is a celebration held at Big Bay Dock that involves members of council, the mayor, the deputy mayor, as well as some staff and some members of the public. There's cake and there's speeches and there's bagpipes and what have you. Like I said, given our current situation, that is not a possibility this year. So we've been looking at taking our celebrations online. And we've come up with a little bit of a fun idea that I hope council will be as excited about as we are. So in coordination with Zach, we have created a few fun kind of little questions and Canada Day trivia and just fun little things for council to partake in. What staff is envisioning is electronic, not per se interviews, but electronic video submissions of each council member detailing what their favorite Canadian musician is or what their favorite Canadian dish is, and what have you. And we will put the video together share it on YouTube, put it on the website, as well as link to the federal live stream of Canada Day fireworks. So I just wanted to bring this forward for your information. So when I ask you to participate in a video conference with me, you aren't taken off guard. But if anyone has any suggestions, we're open to feedback. If there's anything you'd like to see happen, let us know. We're open to suggestions. And if you feel like this idea is crazy, again, let me know. Anne-Marie, do you have anything to add?
Go ahead,
No, I think
Anne-Marie.
that covers it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we would work with you too. So we would have some questions ahead of time so that you could prepare some answers. And so it would just be, it wouldn't be somebody asking, it would just be sort of like you having a memory of maybe what your favorite Canada Day event was or something like that. So we'd make sure that it was pre-scripted so it's not scary.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. And it'd be nice to have the questions ahead of time in case there's a math question so we can look up the answer. Does council have any comments? Everybody's smiling, so it looks like a great idea, Brittany.
And of
Ryan?
course, we'll be there to walk you through it every step of the way.
Ryan, you had a comment?
I just wanted to give some acknowledgement. I think it's a great idea, and it's really hard for organizations to think about how they can imagine a world that's different than what we've come from. And I think it shows great creativity and initiative to think of something and really put your mind to it. And I certainly appreciate that. And I'd like to acknowledge that.
Thanks, Ryan. If there's no other comments from council, we look forward to the video with Brittany. So I'll move on to the agenda then. I believe we have no other new business. So we're down to a closed session. That the Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs move into closed session at, looks like 6 o'clock. With the interim CAO, I believe it's the planner, remaining in virtual room to discuss. Oh, sorry, did I miss the acting clerk, Jen, the planner, and into the virtual discussion. To discuss minutes of previous closed sessions, June 2nd, June 3rd, June 9th, June 10th, June 11th. And two matters subject to solicitor client privilege and encroachment issues on township road allowance. Good. Someone to move it to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Pringle, second by Councillor Colburn. If there's no discussion on the motion, ready me to take the vote, please.
Yes, so Mr. Mayor, I would just like to highlight a couple of things in regards to this motion. The planner was added post circulation of the agenda, just so council is aware. That was an error on my end. I neglected to add her, so the motion has been essentially amended to reflect inclusion of the planner. Additionally, the June 11th minutes are not being included for consideration today. They will be included at the next closed session meeting. So I will take the vote on the amended motion that includes the planner as well as removal of the June 11th minutes. Is there any objection to that?
Thanks, Brittany. No.
Okay, so when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion as amended. Councillor Carol Barfoot?
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn?
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson?
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle?
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton?
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries. And if
now-
everyone could please move into the closed session meeting site. Okay, everyone, we are now live. Mr. Mayor, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Brittany. We went in camera to discuss only what we went in camera to discuss, nothing more. I have a recommendation here that bylaw number 2020-66 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on June 17th, 2020 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, seals the seal of the corporation, endorsing the bylaw book. Do I have someone to put it on the floor, please? Moved by Grant, second by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Barfa, you have your hand up.
No, I just didn't get it down.
Oh, okay. If there's no discussion on the motion, Brittany, we take the vote, please.
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion. Councillor Kara Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Joy Burley.
For.
Thank you, and that carries.
Thank you. Before I ask for a motion to adjourn, council members, 4 o'clock tomorrow for our CAO interviews. Just a reminder. Our next committee of the whole meeting is July 8th. Do I need something to motion to adjourn? Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlson, second by Councillor Coburn. There's no discussion on the motion. Brittany, we take the vote, please.
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you're for or against adjournment at 6:37 p.m. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland is absent. Councillor Kathy Moore-Coburn.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Joy Burley.
For.
Thank you, and we are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Good evening, everyone.